The idea that gangs are hard to reach is a mythology, which is simply not true. Gangs want to be reached. When they asked me to participate in this, I said, look, I don't know what you want me to do, but I can tell you what I want to do. I want to find out as much as I can about these kids. I want to find out what makes them tick. I want to find out how important the gang is to them. Why the gangs get in so much trouble when a lot of other kids don't. Yeah, this is just a Lawndale alley. Well, this is in the Vice Lord territory. We don't know what they were doing. Trying to avoid contact with other gangs, maybe. And this is a school outside gymnasium, if you will, playing basketball. No parking allowed. It's in a parking lot. And this is the story of the junior Vice Lords making it down Roosevelt Road, 12th Street, walking their dogs, just like Park Avenue. But the thing I like about it, it's such a normal activity. These kids were, in most respects, quite normal. They like to do the same things that everybody else does, too. They just seem to get in a lot more trouble. And there's one of the workers, Ed Mitchell, at a hangout with a jukebox and so forth. I love the picture because even though they're normal kids, you got this one-way sign. It's so symbolic. Now this is a group of gang leaders and detached workers. Can you pick out which are which? If you look at who are the best dressed people there, it's the kids. All the rest of these guys are gang leaders, and they're meeting to discuss differences and how they can overcome their differences. And that was in the headquarters of the YMCA downtown. And this is the picture where the blonde said, "Take a picture of me chewing on this cat's ear." I loved that quote. Okay, this is one of the white gang workers. The worker is Hank Bach, who's right there. He's just hanging out on the street. If you could see the expression on this guy's face, you can't because it's not large enough. He's really very skeptical about these kids hanging out on the street. He's not too happy. That's Hank Bach and his boys. These were white kids. Hank he'd been a semi-pro baseball player. Nearly every one of these workers had some real skill. Gilmore was a pool shark. I mean, he was really good. George Dryden had been a little All-American football player. Ed Mitchell had played football for Wheaton College with George. Mike Riley was a middle guard for the University of Iowa football team. I mean, these were playing at a pretty high level. Okay, this is the king and the blonde that was featured earlier, and that's Hank Bach, the worker. Okay, these were our pill poppers. It's a good picture because it's got the drugs. They're under the drugs thing. They were wild because they were so weird compared to the conflict-oriented gangs. The observer, Whitney Pope, our best observer, he talks about these kids fighting, and they were so drunk they could hardly stand. But they got bellicose, I guess, and they weren't very effective. That looks like Hank Bach in a pool room, and I have no idea where that pool room was. I don't think that was the one in the Reynolds Club at the University of Chicago. Dick Boone, the director of the program, said, we'd like to have a pool tournament out at the Reynolds Club, University of Chicago. And I was a little reluctant, but I agreed to do it. But unfortunately, I was giving a seminar for somebody else on the faculty that night, so I couldn't be there when the kids arrived. And I gave my seminar and ran over to the Reynolds Club, and it was surrounded by police cars. And they had their lights flashing and everything. And I thought, my God, that the project is over. I'll never be able to carry this out. So I sidled up to one of the police cars and said, what's going on here, officer? Oh, I don't know. It's a bunch of our Nobel Prize winners meeting inside that building. Well, they were meeting upstairs and the gang kids were meeting downstairs. So I heaved a huge sigh of relief and went down. The pool tournament was in the basement. So I went down there and hobnobbed with a couple of the workers and the gang boys that were down there. Okay, there's Mr. George cruising by. George's main problem was that he got seduced by the street himself. He worked with the Egyptian Cobras for a long time. A lot of boys were getting out of the gang and getting jobs and stuff like that. And George, they transferred him over to another gang, and he didn't like that. He wanted to stay right where he was in that community because he knew everybody there and they knew him. And I think George was probably the least successful of the detached workers from the standpoint of being able to work professionally while being at some removes. If all you can say is, gee, these kids have a lot of potential, let's give them some money, let's love them. It takes more than love and money. It takes training. It takes socialization. It takes monitoring. I've been preaching that for a long time. It still hasn't happened.